is Cheesecake Factory. So cake is a ticker symbol on this one. Cake, a crazy past 5 years, okay? And I did a whole kind of case study recently on Cheesecake Factory over 5-year spans, and you're going to find that Cheesecake Factory is one of the most cyclical stocks in the world in terms of it has these horrible 5-year periods followed by an amazing 5-year period, followed by a horrible 5-year period, followed by an amazing 5-year period. It's incredible, okay? But nonetheless, the last 5 years have been bad for Cheesecake stock price. Hasn't been bad for necessarily the business outside of 2020 when the shutdowns and everything were going on, but their stock price has been in a bad place for the past 5 years. Now, when you think about Cheesecake Factory, remember they own their restaurant, right? The Cheesecake Factory, the big dog, right? That they're always building more locations around, and obviously try to go to those places on a Friday, Saturday night and try to get a seat. Good luck without waiting for an hour or two, okay? Now, they also own this concept, which I think has incredible potential. North Italia. I mean, these locations, if you think Cheesecake Factory is packed, North Italia is even more packed from what I've always gone to. I mean, some of these North Italia are so busy you can't even get into them. I mean, I called one night when I was in Arizona. This is probably, 2 months ago now at this point in time. They couldn't even get me in that night. I was like, there's no time slot open the entire night? Nope. Couldn't even get in. If you want to go to the one in Summerlin, I mean, usually you're looking at a huge wait time on almost every single night, but certainly on the weekends. So North Italia has a great chance of success as far as being a massive, let's call it, restaurant chain around the United States of America. Then they also own Fox Restaurant Concepts, which they own a bunch of different interesting concepts. If you're ever in Arizona, you can try out a lot of these concepts that they own. They own a lot of them. I've been to many of them, and they're all really, really good, and they're very well run, okay? They got that DNA, but it's really about testing to see, what's the next North Italia? What's the next Cheesecake Factory, right? What's that next huge potential concept here? Now, in terms of the numbers, right? Company trades in terms of 2024 numbers at a forward P of less than 10. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. For Cheesecake Factory, I'll gladly take that. Obviously not the most exciting revenue growth story. 5 to 7% is what's expected over the next few years on average per year by analysts. That's fine with me. At a forward P of under 10 on this one. And the fact that think about what these restaurant chains had to go through. I mean, they had to go through all their restaurants being shut down back in 2020, which was crazy to think about. Whoever can see, you always think about recessions and, maybe we're not as busy. You always think about that. You never think about, our restaurant's going to be closed, forced to be closed, and then when we open back up, we're going to be forced to have 50% capacity. You never even conceive of that, and that's what happened, right? That's literally the worst case scenario. And then they went through the second worst case scenario after that, which was super high inflation, where all the stuff that goes into making all the products, all the food inflation went crazy in 2022, right? And, some of that has subsided recently, which is good. Wage inflation all hit while you had very low unemployment, which obviously isn't the best thing in the world when you're in the restaurant industry. All those things kind of coming together, that's how the stock has had such a tough 5 years. And I think a lot of that stuff is going away now at this point in time, so it should have a much better next 5 years than it has over the last 5 years. Now, in terms of dividend, while I wait for the stock to do its thing, I get to make a nice 3% dividend yield on this one. Now, payout ratio says 53%, but keep in mind the company's expected, let's call it $3 of EPS next year, somewhere around there roughly. Well, if the payout's one, a little over $1, I mean, then we're at a 34% payout ratio, 35% payout ratio or something like that based upon next year's numbers. So, yeah, really like this one overall. And another one of those stocks that doesn't matter what happens. I feel comfortable. Good economy, I can feel fine buying Cheesecake Factory. Bad economy, same thing. It doesn't matter. This is one of those that I'll buy the dip regardless, okay? Walgreens. You might have seen the news come out a couple days ago. Walgreens CEO Roz Brewer stepping down from the company, okay? Now, before we get into all this and my opinions and all that, let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? This is huge news even outside the business world. You see even outlets like CNN picking it up, and the reason being is Roz Brewer was a female and a minority. And I think she was only one of two, I believe, female minority CEOs in the entire S&P 500, if I recall. And so her failure at Walgreens is, let's just call it let a lot of people down. A lot of people that were rooting for her are very let down in this situation. And so that's why it's way bigger than just, because usually a CEO steps down. It's like the business community will cover Bloomberg, CNN, or CNBC, excuse me, but not like CNN and in different outlets, New York Times. Like, this is a huge deal, way outside of just the business community. She failed as a CEO. I don't know how else to put it. The stock was down over 50%. I'm sure she tried her hardest, and she had a great pedigree. I mean, she came from, she was a high-level executive at Starbucks. She was a CEO of Sam's Club in the past. I mean, she had the track record to have made a success here. And, for the stock to have gone down over 50%, I mean, it just was horrible, okay? I mean, the 5-year on Walgreens is awful. It's now 65%, right? And fell more, obviously, on the news of her being let go. Okay, so what's going on here in regards to Walgreens? Is a stock a buy, a sell, anything like that, okay? The first place we got to start is we got to remember, the most recent numbers out of Walgreens. Unfortunately, Roz and the team, they missed on kind of the EPS side, right? You don't want to see that. But they did beat very nice on revenue, and that kind of goes to the opposite that you would think in regards to Walgreens. If anything, you would think Walgreens would miss on revenue and beat on EPS, but it went the other way. And they're dealing with a lot of theft in their stores and other things like that. And, this whole theft thing in retail, it's out of hand. I think we all know it by now. It's sad when you see it. And, I mean, I go into these Walgreens stores, and it's insane, man. Even in Walgreens stores in not super bad areas, I mean, so much stuff is locked up now. Now, I understand that, prevents from a lot of theft, but also that's going to prevent from sales. If you make you got to remember, if you're Walgreens, you're selling convenience. That's always been what Walgreens sells. That's why it's on every flip and flapjack and corner throughout the United States of America. Same thing with CVS. You're selling convenience. When you make things more inconvenient, like you got to push a button to go grab this $14 item, right? And you got to wait for somebody to come unlock the thing. It's inconvenient. It's not going to be good for sales. It is good for hoping for, to prevent theft and things like that. That's something that we've been dealing with in this high inflationary environment, obviously, but it is what it is. So that's something to kind of keep in mind there. Now, it is important we do give some respect to Roz because she did beat a lot of the EPS numbers for, most of her time as CEO. This was her first quarter as CEO. Beat. It was a lot of beats up until very recently, started to miss, obviously, in this most recent quarter in terms of on the EPS side at least, right? Now, the other problem was they didn't just miss, but then they took down guidance as well. Our revised guidance takes an approximately cautious forward view in light of consumer spending uncertainty while still demonstrating clear drivers of a return to operating growth next fiscal year, CEO Brewer said. This was in their latest conference call in earnings, which was about, when was that? That was probably 2 months ago now at this point in time. Yeah, probably 2 months ago. And so that's never good when you got to miss numbers and then you got to take down guidance as well. Never something you want to see. Now, in my opinion, Walgreens, is it a buy? Is it a sell? I would lean a little more toward buy than sell. At the end of the day, you do have to keep in mind, I understand how bad the stock price has done. You got to understand, we're now dealing with a stock that has a forward P in the 5 or 6 range. Dealing with a company that ultimately has beat numbers pretty dang consistently for a long time. And you also have to think about it in terms of can it get any worse than this? Your CEO and your CFO just stepped down. No, it doesn't get any worse than that. That's as bad as it gets. I mean, your CEO and CFO both stepping down within a month and a half of each other. That's insanity crazy, okay, folks? So, yeah, I would lean toward buying over selling. I think we're at a point with Walgreens where it's probably max fear priced in. Kind of similar to Foot Locker, like we saw about a week or two ago, where it just had that last flush down. And then ever since, you've kind of seen Foot Locker kind of recovering. Wouldn't be surprised at all if you see a very similar phenomenon happen in Walgreens over time. Okay, we'll see though. Okay, I'm down $6,400 on my shares now. Do keep in mind I've made a bunch of dividend money in this over time, so the number's not that bad. Maybe I'm down, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, something like that. But nonetheless, it still just has not treated me well. Okay,